Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about Queen Elizabeth, the woman who created the Golden Age, the Elizabethan era. First of all, Elizabeth Tudor. She was born on September the 7th, 1533, in the Palace of Greenwich, London. Her father is Henry VIII, and her mother is Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII. Their marriage was despised by most of England because Henry VIII divorced his universally respected first wife, Catherine of Aragon, who is also the Princess of Spain, and most importantly, she's a Catholic. At the time, most of England is Catholic. So, the king, in order to divorce Catherine, broke up with the church. And when he decides to marry Anne, the church did not give him the consent. Therefore, their marriage to the church is not validated. And for that, the king broke up with the church and established the Church of England, which is led by Protestant. And from now on, the war between the Catholic and the Protestants have started. When Anne was married to Henry, she was soon pregnant, and every sign showed that she was pregnant with a boy. But it came out that it was not a boy, it was Elizabeth, and she was a girl. The king did not get his expected male heir and soon lost interest to Anne. 3 years after Elizabeth was born, Anne was charged adultery and incest. Therefore, she was beheaded in London Tower. Elizabeth lost her mother on a very young age, and since she was expected as a boy and came out to be a princess, this greatly disappointed the queen, and after Catherine's death, she was announced illegitimate, therefore lost the right to later inherit the throne. And also, she was degraded from Princess Elizabeth to Lady Elizabeth. On the succession line, Elizabeth was the third in line, and in front of her was her two siblings, Edward, who later became Edward the Sixth, and Mary, who later became Mary the First, and also known as Bloody Mary. Henry VIII is the son that King Henry VIII had with his third wife. And when when Edward was born, the king finally got his male heir, and his third wife, who gave him Edward, died in childbirth. So later he kind of just married another three wives for some reason, and the woman who brought change to Elizabeth's life was Catherine Parr, who is the sixth wife of the king. And she is the one who persuaded the king to restore Mary and Elizabeth's right to inherit the throne. Because when the king divorced with his first wife, as well as beheaded his second wife, the two children were respectively both announced as illegitimate child. And when Edward VIII ascended the throne, he was a healthy man, and it seems that Elizabeth had little chance to ascend the throne, but miracle always happens. So Edward VI caught tuberculosis a few years after after he became the king, and died at a young age. But this is not over yet. The throne did not pass into Mary's hand. Instead, Edward VI appointed his successor to be Lady Jane Grey, who only sat on the crown for 9 days, and was later overthrown by the more powerful Catholic Mary. Mary's mother was Catholic, so she is Catholic. But the reason Edward VI appointed his cousin to be his successor instead of his sibling was because Lady Jane Grey was also a Catholic, and was also a Protestant, which aligns with the religion of Edward VI, as well as Henry VIII. Now here's a chart of the Tudor family. We can see that to the right there is the other branch, to the left it is the branch of Henry VIII, and to the right it was Henry VIII's siblings and their respective descendants. So on the right we can see Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward. To the left we can see Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward. To the right we can see, to the very right, Lady Jane Grey. She is a cousin of Edward, Elizabeth, and Mary. And we have to introduce another character in the very competitive War of Throne. She is Mary, Queen of Scots. The second last line in the middle, counting from James Hepburn, Francis II to Mary, Queen of Scots. She is also the cousin of Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward. And later on, Mary, Elizabeth's sister, failed to leave an heir, and she died because uterine or ovarian cancer. Now it's finally Elizabeth's turn to ascend the throne. But when she became the queen, this war was not over, because Elizabeth is a Protestant. So the majority of England was Catholic, and therefore they preferred Mary of Scots to be the queen. And in several plots to overthrow Queen Elizabeth, one was found to be involved by Mary of Scots, and therefore she was charged of plotting against the queen, and she was beheaded. And there, the internal struggle finally was over. Now, Elizabeth was known as the Virgin Queen because she never married. And it is known that this was due to a lot of influences from her family. Her father, Henry VIII, married 6 wives, and only one of them survived. That is Catherine Parr. And also, here I mentioned Catherine Howard. She is the 5th wife of Henry VIII, and she's only a few years older than Elizabeth. She was beheaded because the king thought that this woman cheated on him. But however, Catherine Howard had a great relationship with Elizabeth. She brought her warmth and companion. So the death of Catherine Howard deeply hurted Elizabeth and let her lost confidence in marriages. Also, Thomas Seymour and Catherine Parr. Thomas Seymour is the husband of Catherine Parr after the king died. So Catherine Parr actually remarried and was pregnant. But Thomas Seymour actually sexually assaulted the queen at her young age when she was living with Catherine Parr after her father died. And she was sent away when Catherine Parr found out about it. It was said that Catherine Parr sent her away because she was heavily pregnant, and if she died in childbirth, Elizabeth would be left vulnerable to Thomas Seymour. And it is suspected that this is a key reason that she did not marry. And there are other reasons, like her siblings, especially Mary's marriage to the King of Spain, Philip II. Their marriage did not end well because Mary was a lot older than Philip, and since she failed to give an heir and have falsely pregnant for a few times, Philip gradually lost interest in her and went back to Spain and never came back. But Elizabeth do have a favorite, and he is Robert Dudley. It was known that she has a favorite, but she never married him because if she married a foreign king, then their marriage would turn into a foreign relationship that may bring war and struggle between the two countries. If she married somebody within the country, then this is an internal affair. Her throne might be taken away by this other man that she married. So, in order to secure the crown, she did not marry anyone, and she said she is going to serve the country, like the country is her husband. Now the Rhine. During her reign, the most notable thing was the religious Reformation between Catholic and Protestant. And the Pope was heavily involved in this because the Pope actually was very supportive for Mary of Scots. But, however, he does not have enough power to overthrow the queen. And the relationship between the Pope and the Queen was actually not that bad, especially, we can't say it's not that bad because when Elizabeth came to the throne, she basically made herself the head of the church. And the Pope only exists in Roman Catholic Church, but the England Church was a Protestant church that balanced between Protestant traditions and Catholic traditions. So she actually supported the Protestant religion, but she did not suppress too much on Catholic religious traditions, like her sister did. Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary, was known to persecute Protestant believers. Some accomplishment during her reign was that she defeated the Spanish Armada, which is at the time the most powerful navy. And England at the time was actually not a very powerful country. England was seen as an inferior island country, but she did, however, lead her navy with smaller ships to destroy and damage 5 Spanish ships very badly, and therefore led to the retreat of the Spanish Armada. This war gained fame for both the Queen and England. Wait a second. Before his navy went to fight the Spanish Armada, she gave the famous speech. Here's a quote, and this is the most notable, most famous quote of Elizabeth in that speech. "I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England too." Her speech is known to raise the English Navy's morale and was said to be the factor that eventually led them to win the war. During her reign, she also established a series of laws that helped to regulate the society, especially contributed to the development of economy, which led to a wealthy and prosperous Elizabethan era, and relative peace between religion. As I have mentioned before, it is the approach of promoting Protestant beliefs, but also not being too harsh on Catholic traditions. Strong government. During this time, Elizabeth was the monarch, and she is not a puppet king and puppet queen like her young brother did. She firmly controlled the government and had trustworthy ministers to help her govern the country. Also, the Elizabethan era was known as the Exploration era. It is during her reign that England established a transatlantic trade route, which also contributed greatly to the economic prosperity of England. The exploration also built a very steady foundation for the later Britain Empire. During the Elizabethan era, the society was prosperous and peaceful, and art and literature flourished because the Queen herself was a fan of literature and art. Therefore, the theaters weren't closed down because of immorality, quote-unquote immorality, which is the reason that they closed theaters down by the church. And Elizabeth herself was a great patron of different artists and playwrights, also poets, all kinds of artists. And led by the Queen, most of her court are also a patron of some kind of artists or playwrights. Now let's talk about the identity of Queen Elizabeth. She is, as I previously mentioned, she lost her mother pretty early on, and her childhood was not really that comfortable, but she did receive the best education, especially when her father married his sixth wife, Catherine Parr. This woman hired Tudor for Elizabeth to learn public speaking, which is a skill that was rarely taught to aristocracy women, or just any woman in general. Therefore, she was a great public speaker, as we can see when she cheered up the morale of her soldiers in the war against the Spanish Armada. Also, she is very talented in literature. She herself is a poet as well as a writer, and she has some talent, not some, but a very great talent on language learning. During her life, she spoke 7 languages, 6 which is not English. She spoke and write in those languages fluently. Those languages are Welsh, Greek, Latin, French, Italian, Spanish, and as well as, I believe, Germany. And some of her favorites, we can see that from those media figures that we have about her, is that she wears orange wigs and wears white makeup that is very creepy, as we see from now, but at the time was very fashionable. Another reason she wears this kind of makeup is because she once caught smallpox and has a lot of scars on her face, so she had to wear these makeup to cover it up. And due to the transatlantic trade routes, sugar was gaining popularity in Europe, and aristocracy and the nobles likes to show their wealth by eating a lot of sugar that eventually turned their teeth black. So we can see in the picture here. This is how she is depicted, and there's reason. Like, she loves to eat sugar, she caught smallpox, therefore wears very white makeup, and her orange wigs that she likes to wear in a lot of her portraits. And I'm finished. Thank you.